Jesus way,
oh, the Jesus way,
is the way of peace.
is the way of peace.
Oh, the Jesus way,
Oh, the Jesus way,
is the way of peace.
is the way of peace.
Oh, the Jesus way is the way of peace. When he is king, all wars will cease. May his peace begin with me.
The Middle Pennsylvania District of the Church of the Brethren is the home of 55 Church of the Brethren congregations. It's also the source of the next two moderators for Annual Conference. David Steele of Huntington, Pennsylvania is this year's Annual Conference moderator, with the conference to be held in Tampa, Florida, July 11th to 15th. The following year, we will see Andy Murray presiding over the 2016 Annual Conference, to be held in Greensboro, North Carolina. David, you may recall, you and I have met before. Our paths crossed in a little remote community 100 miles north of the Arctic Circle, Arctic Village, Alaska. You know, we would not normally go back there, but let's do. We crossed paths on a new community project learning tour led by David Radcliffe to Arctic Village and the Alaska Wildlife Refuge. It's the home of the Native American Gwich'in tribe. Do you remember what that experience meant to you?
Well, I do remember. You talk about remote. I do remember that it was very remote, but I think the experience was very rich and rewarding for me. Not only did I develop some new relationships and friendships, not only with the touring group, but the villagers, and it really gave me a new insight into how a people really depends upon the land and what they need to survive, and how we were really thinking about and talking about how the oil drilling and the potential of that drilling could affect their livelihoods. I think for me that was an eye-opening experience and very significant. So I have a lot of fond memories of that trip.
Pennsylvania is the home to many moderators for the Church of the Brethren annual conferences. David, tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey. Have you always been active in the Church of the Brethren?
Yeah, I have been. I grew up in the Church of the Brethren. In fact, I grew up in this district. This is Middle Pennsylvania District. I grew up in this district. My home is in Martinsburg, which is from this office in Huntington, about 35 minutes from here, across the mountain. And grew up in the church, was on the district youth cabinet as a youth before I left for college and such. And so I've been always connected with the church and active in the church.
Where did you grow up and attend school?
I started out at Penn State Altoona, which is a branch campus of Penn State, and wasn't really feeling motivated. And so in talking with my pastor, he suggested one of the Brethren colleges, and for some reason Juniata seemed too close to home. He suggested McPherson. It was small, and it was a college that became a very significant part of my life. And so we made the journey out west.
David, do you remember what led you into the ministry?
Well, the same pastor who encouraged me to consider Brethren College after high school graduation, during a family camping trip at a local campground, invited me to take a walk with him. And during that walk, he expressed his vision, per se, or this sense that I had gifts for the ministry. And he really wanted to encourage me to consider ministry. And he talked about the gifts he had seen in me. And he really felt that I would really fulfill ministry well. And so he encouraged me, planted the seed. It probably was a 7-year journey of this wrestling with God about what does this mean, before I finally really truly embraced that call to ministry and began preparation for ministry.
I believe you graduated from McPherson College. And where did you go from there?
Well, I married a Missouri gal, and Sarah was born on a farm, raised on a farm, and she and I met at McPherson, and after we married, we moved back to the family farm, her family farm, and she and I farmed with her parents for about 3 years. We made a commitment we made a 3-year commitment to stay on the farm, where we raised hogs and sheep, and it was during that time that, towards the latter part of that time, that it was clear to me that God was really calling me to the ministry, and I needed to move to follow that call. And so we ventured off to Bethany Seminary, which was in Oak Brook at the time. And so from Bethany Seminary, after graduation, my first call was even further west. We ventured out to Bakersfield, California, to serve my first pastorate.
I would imagine that Bakersfield, California is a bit different than Missouri.
Oh yeah, I mean every place I've lived. Of course, growing up in this area, but moving to the plains of Kansas, and from the plains of Kansas to the hills of Missouri, and then from there to the suburbs of Chicago for seminary, and then to the West Coast, to California. Every place we've lived has been unique, and we've gained a deep appreciation not only for the landscape and the geography, but for the people.
David, can you tell us a little bit about your family?
I'm married to Sarah. She and I have been married about 30 years now. And as I mentioned, she and I met at McPherson. We were both very much involved in the music program at McPherson. She was a music major, and I just loved to sing, and we met through that, connected. We have 2 daughters, Abby. Abby is currently seeking employment as a school teacher. She graduated from Elizabethtown College. And Aubrey, our youngest, is 19, part of the Life Skills program, going to be graduating from that program. She's has Down syndrome. Aubrey is one who is that constant reminder of the simple things in life. I think really she keeps us grounded. Just reminds us that life is about family, it's about love, and the significance of that. And so that's my family.
You have served in pastorates in California and Pennsylvania, and now as the district executive in Middle Pennsylvania. They seem to be very different kinds of ministry.
I was, as I noted, my first pastor was Bakersfield, California, and it was a combination of things that called me to move on. It was really a passion for youth, young adults, and wanting to be in ministry with them in a more intentional way. And Sarah at the time was having some health problems, and we wanted to be closer to family. And so I accepted a call back to my home congregation to serve as pastor of youth and children's ministries, and served in that capacity for about 9 years, and towards the end of that transitioned to be co-pastor together with with my colleague at the time, but then felt a sense of call that God was calling me to something else, and this position opened up, and wasn't sure what God had in mind, but I interviewed and just really felt that if that's where I was to be, that's where I would be. And that was 10 years ago. I've been in the role for 10 years, and so I've had a variety of ministry experiences leading into this role, and that really helped lay the groundwork and the framework for me better understanding, I believe, in relating to pastors and churches.
Wasn't it just after the trip to Arctic Village that you decided to accept the position as the district executive for Middle Pennsylvania?
Yeah, right after part of that trip to Arctic Village, I was actually on sabbatical during our trip to Arctic Village. And part of that trip for me was a discernment time about, I was feeling I was an unsettledness in my ministry where I was at, and was it time for me to move on or not? And so that was the beginning of that discernment. So.
The Church of the Brethren is involved in so many ministries at home and internationally. What excites you about what is happening in the Church of the Brethren these days?
I think one of the things that this role as moderator has done has opened my eyes and perspective to the breadth and depth of the Church of the Brethren and its ministries. When I was in seminary, I went on a study tour to Nigeria. That was 20 plus years ago, and that was a great experience to meet our brothers and sisters in Nigeria and the EYN Church and get a sense of the ministries there. This role has broadened that perspective to recognize that the Church of the Brethren is more of a global church than it's ever been. It's more than Nigeria. It's now about Brazil and Haiti and the Dominican and Spain, and those are areas where the Church of the Brethren is growing significantly, so we are clearly more of a global church than we've ever been. That's exciting to me. That really is.
Being an annual conference moderator is probably not on the wish list of many brethren. How did that happen?
Yeah, I don't think this is a role that's on anybody's wish list. But that said, it has been a very rich experience for me. That journey to being moderator. I think a couple years ago, I was nominated and received the call. Would you accept the nomination and allow your name to go on a ballot? And it just didn't feel like the right time, and I declined the nomination. And I received the call that I was nominated again, and I was actually out on the mountains in Pennsylvania. I was deer hunting, although I'm not an avid deer hunter. I just like to be out with my family and out in the woods, and I was up on top of the mountain, believe it or not, where there's a cell phone signal. My phone happened to ring, and I was told that I was been nominated, and would I accept the nomination. And really had this sense that God was in the midst of that and trying to tell me something if this was the second time around, and called my wife and said, what do you think? She offered her 100% support, and I spent some time that day thinking about it, praying about it, and called back and said, sure, I'll allow my name to go forward. And again, that's the first step in that process, and I didn't ever expect to be where I am, even with that nomination. It's been a real humbling experience to receive the call of the church, to be the moderator.
And that also happened to someone else who lives in the same town of Huntington, Pennsylvania. I'm talking about Andy Murray. Is that just a coincidence?
We raise up good leaders in Middle Pennsylvania District. I don't think there's anything particularly going on. For me, I truly believe it is a God thing. Andy and I are from the same district. He lives here in Huntington, and I've known Andy not real well over the years. I've known Andy. I've talked with Andy before and related to Andy, but this year has just been a great experience traveling with him and getting to know him. And so the church again will be blessed by his leadership and his insights as moderator. And but yeah, we raise up good leaders here. You
may know Andy appeared on a recent program of Brethren Voices. and we're planning to visit with him again while he is the moderator of 2016 Annual Conference. The theme for the upcoming Annual Conference to be held in Tampa, Florida is Abide in My Love and Bear Fruit. What are your thoughts about the theme and the conference scheduled for July 11th to July 15th?
Yeah, the theme for me really emerged out of a sense of what I was recognizing in my ministry and in the church, based on some of the conversations that were taking place, that a lot of people were talking about this loving our brothers and sisters, but their actions were not matching their words. And for me, there was really this sense of how are we called to love? And I was drawn to this text from John, and really frustrated by how we were abusing love in the life of the church. And so I think that and my daughter, Aubrey, is motivated by nothing but love. She is, everything that she does, the way she relates to people is about love. And for me, those two pieces came together. This text, I think, is really rich. And not only does it talk about loving our brother and sister, Jesus commanding us to love one another, but it also talks about the nature of friendship. And then the text, and that was the surprise to me in the text as I've worked through it. The surprise was that Jesus called his disciples to be his friends. We're not making Jesus our friend. Jesus is calling us to be his friends. And so that changes the nature of friendship. And so we don't really have a choice of who our friends are as disciples and followers of Christ. And so we have to find a way to love them as Jesus loved us. So yeah, conference is right around the corner, and we're really excited about the Tampa setting, more intimate setting, a smaller convention center, and as we gather there, it will be not only around the theme, but we have a lot of things planned, some of which will not be new, some of the routine kind of things, but there'll be some other things that are coming. So,
from what I understand, doing business around the round tables really seems to be the way to go. It gets people involved and sharing and talking. Is that planned again for this year?
Oh yeah, I think the round tables have become now a part of our culture. I think we've heard nothing but positive feedback from folk through not only evaluations that people fill out at Annual Conference, but by verbal communications that people have noted how they can come to a table with a certain perspective, and it's not that their perspective has changed, but just the nature of the conversation around that table and the nature of building relationships gives them a whole different perspective of not only their beliefs and their values, but of maybe a different set of values and beliefs. And there's a new respect. And I think the tables have changed the conversation at Annual Conference. So yeah, they're here to stay, I think, and they're a part of our culture.
It seems to bring together people from all over the country who would never meet otherwise, and get them to talk and be in communion.
It is being in communion, and it's really fascinating to me how we've discounted relationship in the church. For me, there is a sense that we lack the relationship to really truly make decisions on behalf of the church. We are part of our own little church communities, our own little silos, so to speak, and where Scripture is significant for each church. But those experiences, those unique experiences that we have in our own congregations shape our understanding of Scripture. And so without the relationship, without those round tables to be able to share those experiences and build relationships with people we don't know, that's that's the great part of the round tables, and coming together and building those relationships to help us make better decisions. It's a unique year, at least in my mind, that we have no unfinished business items. We have 7 new items of business coming. A couple are carryovers from last year. I won't go into any great detail, but we have an item coming related to bylaws for the Church of the Brethren, related to the term of chair and chair-elect of the Mission and Ministry Board. There are 2 queries related to Brethren Benefit Trust that we'll be attending to. This is the year that we do our review and evaluation of denominational structure, and so we'll be setting the tasks out for that and calling out that committee. There's a query coming from the Mid-Atlantic District related to district structure, and so that is a new item that we'll be attending to as delegates. And then there's also a piece coming from the Mission and Ministry Board, a resolution on Christian minority communities, recognizing some of all that's going on in the world, and just really supporting those communities. So it'll be a busy conference.
This will be my first time attending Annual Conference, and I'm really looking forward to it, although it's a little overwhelming to me. David, what are the ingredients for a meaningful Church of the Brethren Annual Conference?
I think what makes Annual Conference meaningful clearly is different for each person, I believe, but I think yes, we do come for business, but I think conference is much more than that. It is that one opportunity where we come together each year to worship together, and we all worship differently in our own congregations, and this is an opportunity to bring all that together and worship. I think the opportunities to do together around insight sessions and learn. And hear not only different presentations, but also to learn different ways to help our churches in terms of growth and attending to the needs of the church. I think the opportunities for fellowship, to meeting new people, the round tables have helped facilitate that. Obviously, there'll be ice cream this year at Annual Conference. And we're using that as an opportunity to bring people together. It's this year, there's nothing else going on. There's no hearings that night. It's just going to be all about community and building relationships. And I think that's one of the key ingredients for conference for me.
I'm really amazed. Annual Conference brings together so many people preparing for the big meeting. The Program Arrangements Committee, the music, the volunteers, the worship, all of this has to come together at the same time.
Yeah, the primary group that really works at pulling conference together is the Program and Arrangements Committee. Each year, the delegate body calls out a new member of that committee. And so we've got 3 elected members together with the 3 annual conference officers and the conference director who make up that group. And they are making decisions around theme. They're making decisions around the speakers, who's going to be preaching. They're making decisions about the worship planning team, the group that's been called out to plan all the worships for Annual Conference. And they're making decisions about insight sessions. They're making decisions about the exhibiting booths. There's a group of volunteers, on-site volunteers who make the flow of conference at the site go better, in terms of the junior high coordinators, the children's activities coordinators, the youth coordinators, just hundreds of people. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but a lot of people come together to make conference happen. So it is fascinating to watch it all come together.
I was looking over the list of speakers for Annual Conference, and one name popped out at me: Roger Nishioka. The youth really seemed to appreciate him as he spoke to the National Youth Conference last summer.
Our schools, our colleges, our universities, because they have to, are spending more energy teaching us about lockdowns than how we are supposed to lift one another up. You are the church of the brethren. You stand in a trajectory of 300 years of women and men and children and young people, some at the cost of their lives, who have stood as a witness for peace. You are one of the 3 great historic peace churches of the world. Come on! This is your job. You were created for this. And when you do this, this is so cool. The Lord is so cool. When you do this, you heard, we are seized with amazement. We are filled with awe.
Yeah, Roger did make a big impression on a lot of people at National Youth Conference. He really helped set the tone in my mind for conference, and the speakers really offered the church a challenge. Roger is obviously not Church of the Brethren, and he really called the church back to its heritage and to live that heritage out, because the world needs that. And it was a very powerful sermon. And we, not to recapture what he did at National Youth Conference, but just really had a sense that Roger knows us. He took the time to get to learn to know who the brethren are, and really could bring Scripture alive through that message. And so, yeah, we're excited to have Roger come back with us.
David Steele, it's wonderful to cross paths with you again. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with us on Brethren Voices. Our thoughts and our prayers go with you on your journey as moderator of the 223rd Annual Conference of the Church of the Brethren.
Well, thank you. It's been a joy and a pleasure to be with you today, and I've been again very moved and humbled by the prayers and support of the church, and it has been an honor to serve. So thank you.
For David Steele and myself, Brent Carlson, we wish you peace.
The Jesus way,
Oh, the Jesus way
is the way of peace.
is the way of peace.
Oh, the Jesus way
Oh, the Jesus way
is the way of peace.
is the way of peace.
Oh, the Jesus way is the way of peace. When he is king, all wars will cease. May his peace